we're here really to protect the rural way of life, rural jobs. We want good quality British produce to put on the plate. We don't want imported food from around the world grown by corporations, and that's really why we're here. We're not here protesting against the tax per se, but given the way farms are structured and the very, very small margins they work to, we cannot afford this tax. It's as simple as that. UK agriculture will disappear very, very quickly under these taxes as they stand today. So we are asking for a softening, not necessarily a complete eradication, but a softening of what they're proposing. We've got nothing to lose and everything to gain by being here fighting hard for our industry, our rural way of life, and everybody that's connected to it. That's the bottom line.
Rarely has Whitehall seen such a collection of green wellies and barbered jackets, though in fairness to the thousands of farmers who descended on central London today, they were at least appropriately dressed for the bitterly cold weather. In fact, it is testament to the anger that is felt in the farming community towards Chancellor Rachel Reeves and the changes to inheritance tax she has ushered in that so many of them made the journey.
Look, I do understand their concerns. What I've pointed out is, firstly, that at the budget we put £5 billion into farming over the next 2 years. That's the single biggest amount of money that's being put into farming because I want to support our farmers.
It's determined not to give in, insisting the existing system's neither fair nor sustainable, and they need the money for schools and hospitals.
We're here to save my dad's farm. So yes, because if this all goes through, my dad's quite elderly as well. We're probably not going to have time to leave it to my brother, and my brother's actually helped my dad pay for the farm. So it's
and we've all worked on it all our lives,
all our lives,
and our
farm.
children.
Yeah,
and we want something for the future.
Yeah.
It's not really about an inheritance tax for me. It's more about the fact that for the last God knows how many years they've been making it harder and harder for us to farm. And we produce everyone's food. Without us, everything's going to be a hell of a lot more expensive because it'll be brought in from another country. But they don't seem to understand. And year on year we get more legislation, more taxes, and it's just harder and harder to turn a profit.
We're a farming nation, aren't we? So my son's actually at university doing sustainable agriculture, and I feel, will there be a future for him?
So, we're not going to be able to feed ourselves soon, and it's just going to be ridiculous.
I know, it is going to be bad.
No farmers, no food.
For
Britain's farming sector is facing one of the most profound periods of upheaval in its modern history. Across the countryside, from arable fields in eastern England to livestock farms in Wales and Scotland, pressures that have been building for years are now converging into what many describe as a systemic crisis. Rising costs, shifting subsidy regimes, climate volatility, and changing trade relationships have left large numbers of farmers questioning whether traditional agriculture in the United Kingdom remains economically viable. Against this backdrop, reports of British farmers seeking opportunities abroad, including in parts of Africa, have become a potent symbol of anxiety about the future of the country's food system. The idea of a mass exodus of farmers captures headlines, but behind the dramatic language lies a more complex and troubling reality. British agriculture employs hundreds of thousands of people directly and indirectly. While estimates of how many might leave the sector or the country vary widely, there is little doubt that a significant number of farmers are exiting the industry altogether, selling land, downsizing operations, or looking overseas for alternative livelihoods. For a nation that has long prided itself on food standards and rural stewardship, the implications are far-reaching. At the heart of the crisis is money. Farming margins in the UK have been under strain for decades, but recent years have intensified the pressure. Input costs have risen sharply. Fertilizer prices surged following global energy shocks. Animal feed became more expensive amid disrupted supply chains. Fuel, machinery, and maintenance costs climbed steadily, while labour shortages pushed wages higher. For many farmers, especially small and medium-sized operations, these increases have outpaced any growth in income. At the same time, the system of agricultural subsidies that long underpinned British farming has been undergoing a fundamental transformation. Following the UK's departure from the European Union, the Common Agricultural Policy was phased out and replaced with new domestic schemes. The new model places greater emphasis on environmental outcomes rather than direct production. While many environmental groups welcome the shift, farmers have struggled with uncertainty, administrative complexity, and delayed payments. For some, the transition has been destabilizing. Direct payments once provided a predictable financial cushion, allowing farms to survive poor harvests or market downturns. Under the new arrangements, income is increasingly tied to delivering public goods such as biodiversity protection, carbon sequestration, and landscape management. Farmers who cannot easily adapt their operations to meet these criteria face declining support. Climate change has added another layer of difficulty. British weather has become more erratic, with prolonged droughts followed by intense rainfall. Crops have failed in some regions, while flooding has damaged fields and infrastructure in others. Livestock farmers have faced heat stress in animals and shortages of winter feed. Insurance costs have risen, and planning has become more uncertain. Trade dynamics also play a role. Global food markets are highly competitive, and British farmers often face competition from imports produced under different regulatory and cost structures. While UK food standards remain among the highest in the world, that very quality can translate into higher production costs. Farmers argue that they are being undercut by cheaper imports while simultaneously being asked to meet ever stricter environmental and welfare rules. Against this backdrop, stories have emerged of British farmers exploring opportunities overseas. Africa, with its vast tracts of arable land, growing populations, and expanding food markets, has featured prominently in these discussions. Some British agribusinesses have long operated on the continent, particularly in countries such as Kenya, Ghana, Zambia, and South Africa. For individual farmers facing insolvency at home, the prospect of cheaper land, longer growing seasons, and different regulatory environments can be appealing. It is important to note that this movement is not uniform, nor is it always permanent. In many cases, farmers are diversifying rather than abandoning Britain entirely. Some invest in overseas ventures while retaining smaller operations at home. Others sell land in the UK to pay off debts and start anew abroad. The numbers involved are difficult to verify, and claims of hundreds of thousands leaving should be treated with caution. Nevertheless, even a modest outflow reflects deep dissatisfaction. For those who do relocate or invest abroad, the motivations are varied. In parts of Africa, land prices can be a fraction of those in the UK. Labour is often more readily available. Climatic conditions allow for multiple growing seasons, increasing potential yields. Governments in some countries actively court foreign agricultural expertise and investment, seeing it as a way to boost food production and exports. Yet the move is not without risks. Farming in unfamiliar environments brings challenges, from different soil conditions to political and legal uncertainties. Infrastructure can be less developed, access to finance more limited, and markets less predictable. There are also ethical considerations. Large-scale foreign farming ventures have, in some cases, been criticized for displacing local communities or prioritizing export crops over local food needs. Back in Britain, the prospect of farmers leaving raises serious questions about food security. The UK currently produces around 60% of the food it consumes, a figure that has fluctuated over time. If domestic production declines further, reliance on imports could increase, leaving the country more exposed to global shocks. Recent events, from the pandemic to the war in Ukraine, have highlighted the fragility of international supply chains. Food security is not solely about quantity. It also encompasses affordability, resilience, and sustainability. If farming becomes concentrated in fewer, larger operations, rural communities could suffer. Small family farms play a vital role in maintaining landscapes, supporting local economies, and preserving agricultural knowledge passed down through generations. The social impact of the farming crisis is already visible. Mental health issues among farmers have risen, driven by financial stress and uncertainty. Rural services have declined as populations shrink. Younger people are often reluctant to enter farming, deterred by high land prices and uncertain returns. An aging farming population faces difficult decisions about succession and retirement. The government insists that its reforms will ultimately create a more sustainable and resilient agricultural sector. Officials argue that paying farmers for environmental stewardship reflects public priorities and will open up new income streams. They point to investment in innovation, technology, and skills as pathways to productivity gains. There is also emphasis on boosting domestic food production alongside environmental goals. Critics counter that the pace of change has been too rapid and poorly managed. They warn that without adequate transitional support, many farms will fail before the benefits of the new system materialize. Farming unions have called for clearer policy signals, fairer trade deals, and greater recognition of the strategic importance of domestic food production. The debate is particularly intense in sectors such as livestock farming, where margins are thin and environmental requirements are demanding. Upland farmers, who manage some of the most iconic landscapes in the UK, argue that they are being asked to deliver public goods without sufficient compensation. For them, the notion of seeking opportunities elsewhere reflects desperation rather than ambition. Public awareness of the crisis remains limited. Food shortages have not yet become widespread, and supermarkets continue to offer a wide range of products. But experts warn that the effects of declining domestic production may take years to become fully apparent. Once farms are lost, rebuilding capacity is difficult. The idea of British farmers fleeing to Africa resonates because it speaks to a sense of reversal. For centuries, Britain exported agricultural expertise and capital abroad from a position of strength. Today, some farmers feel pushed out by forces beyond their control. Whether or not the numbers are as dramatic as some headlines suggest, the underlying pressures are real. There is also a broader global context. Agriculture worldwide is under strain from climate change, population growth, and geopolitical tension. Competition for fertile land and water is intensifying. In this environment, the movement of farmers and capital across borders reflects a search for stability and opportunity in an uncertain world. For African countries, the arrival of foreign farmers can be both an opportunity and a challenge. Investment and expertise can boost productivity and infrastructure, but only if managed in ways that respect local rights and priorities. Partnerships, rather than displacement, are increasingly seen as essential. Ultimately, the future of British farming will depend on choices made now. Balancing environmental goals with food production, supporting farmers through transition, and ensuring fair competition in global markets are complex tasks. The consequences of failure would extend far beyond the fields, affecting consumers, rural communities, and national resilience. The image of farmers leaving Britain for distant shores should serve as a warning rather than a prophecy. It highlights the urgency of addressing the structural problems facing agriculture. Whether the UK can reverse the sense of crisis and restore confidence among those who produce its food remains an open question.